back aboard today?
No, we never tried her on the turf before. We never had any interest in it because she was winning on the dirt. So but Cornelio rides her well, and we put him on her.
All right, well, good luck today. 5-1 in the morning line. I think she's got a heck of a shot. Back to you, Seth, and Racing Across America.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Thanks, Jeff. As noted before the interview with Jeff, we're joined now by Randy Moss, Jerry Bailey of NBC. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello.
Morning. Happy to have you on board. And you're in town, obviously, tomorrow, a big day for NBC, covering the Test and the Whitney. And NBC's also, what, 3 times this year you're going to be in town?
Yeah, we got this race, and we got a little layoff, then we come back for the Travers, and then the Woodward. I won't be here, but Jerry will be here for the Woodward. Yeah.
And that's part of kind of with NBC Sports now coming on board, a little bit of expanded coverage for horse racing, correct?
Yeah, between the end of the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup, there's 10 races, some on NBC proper, some on NBC SN. So yeah, I mean, it's a very, very full summer and expanded menu for us.
I mean, last year we had what they call Summer at Saratoga, which was, exclusively Saratoga, and that was pretty much all NBC did except for the Breeders' Cup. Now we've got this Breeders' Cup Challenge Win in Your In series. So we have the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, the Haskell, we'll have the Pacific Classic, we'll have Keeneland in the fall, go to Santa Anita in the fall. So we got a whole big series leading up to the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, it's
good for us.
Yeah, and good for horse racing as well, because it's giving some added exposure to that. Let's get right into tomorrow and the Whitney. Get some of your thoughts on the race. And while we talk, I pulled up the stretch run of the Met Mile. We're going to watch the number 1 Palace Malice get it done, prove that he can run a mile. They're really a versatile handicap division player. He is obviously going to take all the attention tomorrow, but it's a fun field in a handicap division that earlier we kind of thought was very strong. Now we're a little bit iffy, but we're waiting to see maybe Will take charge. Can he revalidate himself a little bit? Some horses in here that I think are interesting on their best efforts are Glass Gunfighter, Romanche, Departing might be a little bit interesting. It's My Lucky Day, who was looking to go for the win down at Monmouth on the undercard last week, but they decided to come up here, so he makes it interesting. Give us some of your thoughts on tomorrow's Whitney.
He won this race 5 times, so maybe we should let him go first, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to start with Palace Malice. To me, I've thought he's the best horse in the country for at least 3 months now.
Yeah.
To win at a mile, and to win at a mile and an eighth and a mile and a half, as Randy pointed out, no horse has won the Belmont, the Met Mile, and the Whitney, ever.
I mean, you think, a century plus of great racehorses that have come through here in the Belmont Park, that one horse would have done that.
Yeah,
but it's a different skill set.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah.
I mean, he was a good horse last year, but he was very inconsistent. I think that the difference between last year and this year is his maturity and consistency to win at a mile, to win at a mile and an eighth, and overcome trouble. Now, it's something he wasn't able to do last year. If you remember in the Travers, he got away from the gate poorly. He was wide, turning for home. Arguably the best horse. I mean, people have different opinions on that. Breeders' Cup, he didn't get away well and wasn't able to run well. This year, he's overcome some trouble and still been able to win in some very big spots.
The Palace Malice of last year probably wouldn't have been able to overcome the inside post in the Metropolitan and the way that race was going to be run and win it anyway. And he's really come around this year.
Yeah, as you say, different skill sets, and he's done it pretty convincingly. So clearly, he's obviously the leader of the division, and I think if he wins tomorrow, he puts a chokehold on it. But let me get some thoughts from you guys on this handicap division, because as I say, I think about 2 months ago, we were all kind of salivating, and then Will Take Charge maybe went backwards a little bit. We're kind of waiting for the return of Lee. And I also want to get some opinions from you guys on Game On Dude, who off the past couple of races, folks, there's some hand-wringing out there on the internet. Mm-hmm. My take is maybe he's not as consistent as he was. He's always a horse that seemed to need his own way a little bit. And it just may be a little bit more emphasized now. But I think you go back to that big cap earlier this year, I still think he's a grade 1 horse.
He's going to win the Pacific Classic. There's no speed in that race.
Yeah.
And looking at the field leading up to the Pacific Classic, at the probables, you've got the horse that beat him in the Gold Cup, right? You've got Clubhouse Ride. You've got some other horses like that don't really have even tactical speed.
Yeah.
I guess Shared Belief is the only horse in there against him that's even got tactical speed, and he does have it. He'll probably be sitting second behind Game On Dude. But it's going to be the same position as last year, where Game On Dude is going to be able to control the pace. He likes the polytrack at Del Mar. He won the last race last year by, 8 3/4 or whatever. He's going to win it again.
Yeah, and that's what I
my
said. I said,
opinion.
I said picking his spots, he's going to be okay this year.
I mean, well, I think we'll find out a couple of things. Is he back on his game, and is shared belief what some people think he is, if he can beat Elders? But I still believe that the West Coast division is much weaker than the rest of the country. I think Palace Malice has a dominant. If Will Take Charge can come back to last year's, which Randy has convinced me in believing that he's not on the same level. I don't think so either. He said this after the Oakland Park race, that even though he won, he's not quite what he was last year, and subsequently he hasn't won since then, even though the Stephen Foster was a better effort. But I think what we're going to find out in the Whitney is departing, is It's My Lucky Day, horses like that, can they step up and run the race of their life to be competitive?
The thing about the handicap division this year is that it may be light right now on the older horses, but when you get to the Breeders' Cup, I think this is a good bunch of 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because you've got California Chrome, obviously, and he loves Santa Anita. He'll be fresh. You've got Shared Belief. How good is he? He may be better than California Chrome. Now you've got Byron, who's really coming on strong. And you've got, obviously, Toneless and Wicked Strong.
Yeah.
So you've got a good, solid bunch of 3-year-olds who are probably going to get better by the time the fall rolls around.
I agree.
Yeah, and with their addition, and that's always fun when the 3-year-olds do start to step out of their division. And as I say, this handicap division was so strong earlier this year, and I think it stands the chance of coming back when Lee gets back on track. One horse that I'm sad isn't up here in the Whitney is a horse that I think stands a chance of maybe moving up and being in the upper division. Moonshine Mullen, who elected to go to Mountaineer tomorrow, but I think he's kind of interesting in the handicap division.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking he was a horse for a course at Churchill Downs, had things his own way, but he showed a little another dimension in the Stephen Foster, being able to rate slightly and still coming away with a win. So traveling now to West Virginia, it'll show me at least, can he take that effort on the road?
He's a cool horse, and I'm a big fan of his trainer, Randy Morse. I used to get his mail sometimes, but seriously, I did. But I'm not convinced that Moonshine Mullen is going to be a real big player by the time you get to the later part of the handicap division. In the Ali Sheba and in the Stephen Foster, he was the beneficiary of fairly soft-paced races on the lead in one and stalking in the other. When you get in the mix with your Game On Dudes and your horses like that, your Morenos, and the pace gets ratcheted up a few levels, I'm not quite sure he would be that effective.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm with you. I think it would have been fun, though, to kind of get the test for that tomorrow. But I have no argument. They're probably thinking the same thing you are. Let's go to West Virginia and maybe pick up an easier check there. Now, we've talked a little bit about the 3-year-olds, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that with both of you. Pulling up the stretch run of the Belmont, going back to June. We're going to watch number 11, Toneless, get it done. Number 8, Commissioner, second. 1, Medal Count, third. And California Chrome going for the Triple Crown. The number 2 horse runs fourth in here. And I just wanted to get the take from both of you. Obviously, NBC covering the Triple Crown. What were your thoughts on the Triple Crown? A little bit of controversy on the NBC broadcast afterwards. But
we're going to go back to that.
But I'll say this. We were down there the week of the Belmont, and we caught up with Steve Coburn at the breakfast, and he was just convinced. His quote to us was something like, "It's a done deal." And I think he's a guy so new to the game, and not only a done deal, he said, a Triple Crown win is going to be great for the sport. So I think he was just totally invested in it, fairly new to the game. And so I understand his disappointment afterwards, and certainly he didn't choose his words as well as he could have. And maybe he waited a day too late for the mea culpa, but it eventually did come. So I'll give him a pass there. But overall, what was your take on the Triple Crown?
I thought California Chrome, going into it, had a couple of nuances that I thought could cost him at any given time, the gate issues. He didn't have those in the Derby and the Preakness, and he got really good trips. Ridden very, very well. Circumstances went his way, and he performed up to his abilities. Not so much in the Belmont. We talked about this before the race, that we both, I especially thought, he should go to the lead. With the post that he had, the speed that he had, relative to very little speed, I thought he would and should go to the lead. Watching the race, however, it didn't appear like he was the same horse that we saw in the Derby and the Preakness, and I couldn't kill Victor, for not going to the lead, because a lot of times things change for us in a race, and even though we have an intent to do something, the horse isn't there, and I think pushing him, which he would have had to do slightly, to get to the lead, wasn't the right thing to do at the time. So that's why I gave him a pass, and he still, to me, he got a chance, even though that is not his preferred running style, which Randy points out correctly. I still thought he had every chance in the world to win.
And I wasn't willing to give him a pass because, to me, if you're on California Chrome, and all the talk was about how he's a push-button horse. He's got multiple gears. You can do what you want to with him. You can put him on the lead. You can set him just off the pace. He'll do anything you want him to do. You're on the first turn. You look directly to your inside. There's medal count. You look to your outside. There's Commissioner. Todd Pletcher didn't even dream Commissioner would be on the lead.
Yeah.
Right? You're going too slow. So why take him back, put him in a spot he's not comfortable in, then take him wide? You got beat a length and 3/4 when it was all said and done. You know, who knows what would have happened? He might not have won anyway, whatever. So, we had a lot of fun with that in the
How much
Belmont.
validity do you guys give, though, to the getting stepped on coming out of the gate? I mean, as a former jockey, what
I
kind
think
of
it cost him a position. A lot of horses win after doing that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
physically, I can't hang my hat on that because a lot of horses that I've ridden grab a quarter out of the gate, worse than that, and still win. It just cost him a position, and I think that's what changed Victor's mind. Since he didn't break all that well, I'm not going to force the issue. I will say, however, that had he forced the issue after that kind of a break, he would have been hounded constantly down the backside. The fraction would have been somewhat faster, but I think he would have been pressured the entire trip. So I think it was a no-win situation for Victor after the break.
As far as Steve Coburn goes, you know, I mean, yeah, he said some pretty, you know, buffoonish things after the race was over and all. But he was so good in the lead up. He's so good with the fans. You saw him waving and getting them going before the races, you know, started and all that. Look, I would much rather have somebody like that who came out and spoke his mind and was outspoken than a lot of these guys that are just so vanilla and will never say anything that could remotely be controversial or opinionated. So you can't really have it both ways, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that was kind of my take too. I mean, I think the Triple Crown was great for the sport. I think anytime you get two, you know, the winner of the first two, and there's that interest generated. You know, there's this talk. Triple Crown winner would save the sport. I don't think there's any saving the sport, but I think it raises awareness. The way commercials raise brand awareness, an attempt at a Triple Crown raises brand awareness.
I think what would help the sport is when you get a possible Triple Crown and it doesn't happen, or it does, that the horse come back and jump back in the mix so that the public can reestablish a relationship with him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed that he's disappeared for so long without any public contact, you know, and hasn't established, okay, I'm going to come back here. Typically, horses running in the Triple Crown will have come back by the Haskell, the Jim Dandy, or the Travers, or at least on the road to it if they're not permanently injured. So I'm a little disappointed that they didn't come back in it, but I know they're doing what's best for the horse.
And let me float to you guys, obviously covering the Triple Crown for NBC. I'd like to get your opinion. This was floated seriously. I mean, we've heard it for years now, but it was floated seriously by the folks down at Maryland in particular, changing up the dates of the Triple Crown. And my first question is why? If you're talking about making the Triple Crown easier, I'm totally against it. If you're talking about ostensibly making it a better series, yeah, okay, but I don't know whether it will.
Here's your man for it right here.
First of all, it spacing the races will not make the Triple Crown easier to win. As a matter of fact, it could even make the Triple Crown tougher to win, because right now, the Preakness has never been softer. It's never been easier to win the Preakness than it is today. People say, okay, if you space the races out and you win the Triple Crown, you've cheapened it, okay? But right now, even though we haven't had a Triple Crown winner since Affirmed, it's almost cheapened already, because all the top Derby horses that lose skip the Preakness, and the Preakness almost becomes a base on balls for some of these horses. It's weird to say that about the second leg of the Triple Crown, but there is a problem right now with the Triple Crown that needs to be addressed, and that is the fact that all these horses skip the middle leg of the Triple Crown. If you space it out, you'll have all the top Derby horses that'll come back and run in the Preakness, and it'll actually make that race tougher to win than it is now. So that sort of compensates for the fact that you're giving the horses a little more time in between races, in my opinion. If this was the NFL, if this was Major League Baseball, they would have seen this developing and would have done something about it to fix it. You know, not only that, you create a situation where the undercard at the Preakness
And I think that's Maryland's main concern.
becomes so much stronger that you can actually set up mini series with, let's say, for example, the sprinters, right? You got the Churchill Downs handicap, you got the Maryland, what used to be the Maryland Breeders' Cup handicap, and then you can come back with the True North on Belmont Day. The turf horses, same thing. The Woodford Reserve, the Dixie, the Manhattan. You can put bonus situations. You've got all these different series, the 3-year-old fillies, right? you could really make that a super strong series for all these different divisions. There's all kinds of reasons to go for it. You know.
So you're for it. You're
Totally
stretching
for
it out.
Totally for it.
I'm fine. You know, look. We pointed out. Randy made me aware of it. They ran the Preakness before the Kentucky Derby 11 times.
Yeah, but
a lot of people don't know that. So they messed around with this already. It's not something brand new.
And a lot of people don't know this. You talk about, okay, it lessens the accomplishment of winning the Triple Crown, right? They weren't saying that about Secretariat. Okay, before when in the 1960s, right?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
It was actually 2 weeks between the Preakness and the Belmont for most of that period of time. And then after beginning in 1969 with Majestic Prince forward, they changed it to the format that it is right now. So you actually gave them an extra week for Secretariat, for Seattle Slough, for Affirm. And you didn't hear talk about those Triple Crown accomplishments being cheapened because they added more time.
And I also go back, if you take a close look at the size of the fields that some of those horses were facing, it's completely different than today too. And there's no asterisk there.
You can't be so tied in to the way things have always been done that you're not willing to make improvements when it becomes obvious that improvements need to be made.
And again, with the folks down in Maryland, it had a serious push this year, so we'll see how it works out. But I just want to stick on the 3-year-olds for another minute or two here. Go back to the Haskell a couple of weeks ago down at Monmouth last week, down at Monmouth, and watch Bayern win again. We're going to watch the stretch run. Number 2 Bayern will win, and I bring this up because as we came into the Saratoga meet, I was saying here on the program that I thought the other divisions were going to be strong, and the Travers stood a chance of being a fun race, but I thought the 2 most prominent 3-year-olds, we've talked about them already, California Chrome and Shared Belief out in Southern California. So the Travers looked, like a fun race, but not as intriguing or as potentially interesting as races like the Whitney and Woodward and whatnot. But then we see Bayern do this, and Baffert kind of goes to plan B and said, well, maybe the Travers is out there. I think his quote was something like, well, if I come to Saratoga, I'm coming for the canoe as opposed to the sprint race. So I think he adds some intrigue, and I think that the Jim Dandy last weekend with Wicked Strong and Tonalist running 1-2, I think the Travers is setting up to be potentially a nice race if Bayern decides to come.
Yeah, but you have to remember Bayern was playing catch-up. I mean, he didn't start until January, so he was playing catch-up all spring. His effort in the Arkansas Derby was a bit disappointing, coming off a 15-length win at Santa Anita, and of course he got wiped out at the gate in the Preakness. So if you take the Preakness out of the mix, he kind of figured, I think we kind of overlooked him a little bit. Everybody was focused on Untappable, but with the only speed on the speed-favoring track, a race where Baffert owns, all he needed to do was really break well, and he was on his way, which is exactly what happened.
Now, we were really kicking ourselves after the Haskell because, we thought that the filly was the horse to beat, like most people did. But, you look at the Haskell from a pace perspective, right? And there were a couple of horses in there that figured to perhaps challenge Bayern on the front end. You had Encryption, but we were told by the people that have Encryption, we want to take him back. All right? Wildcat Red figured to press him. But Jose Garofalo, the trainer of Wildcat Red, was telling us he was so glad to draw a post outside for a change because then he could stalk and sit behind Bayern and rate him and not have to go up and tackle him on the front end. The other one was Social Inclusion. Well, we had word from Florida that in his last gate workout, A, he was going nuts inside the starting gate, which he did again in the Haskell, and B, he didn't break well. So you take those 3 potential pace pressers sort of out of the mix on the front end, and that leaves Bayern all by himself, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, but again, to me it looked like early on this summer, maybe the 3-year-old picture over the summer was going to be a little bit light, but I think the Travers is shaping up fun, and the Pennsylvania Derby could be even better.
Yeah, and looking at the Haskell, I glanced over at the Jim Dandy, and we have all this potential speed in the Haskell, which didn't materialize. Right. You had none, basically, in the Jim Dandy, and I was wondering, why didn't a couple of these Haskell horses come over to the Jim Dandy? So as we go forward to the Travers, it looks like Bayern could be the speed of the Travers as well.
And I think Bob Baffert thinks that as well.
Might be doing the same thing that he did at the Haskell, because Wildcat Red now said he's going to shorten up and go for the King's Bishop. So you could have a scenario exactly like the Haskell in the Travers.
With the blinkers, Wicked Strong is a little more aggressive on the front end.
But he doesn't want to be there.
No.
And that's a great lead into, as we wrap up, I want to ask you guys a question that as somebody who's followed the game for a long time, I've lamented about it now for a while, and I'll get your opinion. You're the Moss pace figures, so you're a pace guy as a former jockey. We've been talking about pace off and on for the past few minutes. 21st Century Racing in 2014, You saw it in the Haskell. I think jockeys now have lost that notion of the clock in the head. To me, it's more they look for the point on the track where they're going to make their move. And just you see way too often now in the backstretch, a horse is out there, has lead by a length or maybe a little daylight, and you look up the clock in 1:11, and they go into the turn, you're going, somebody go up there, somebody challenge. And it just seems to me like, as I say, jockeys don't have that clock in the head anymore.
Did they ever? Was it overrated to begin with?
I think knowing how fast you're going is a little bit overrated. It's relevant to how fast they let you go or how slow they let you go, and making it a comfortable race. I think that more than anything else. And look, there's a group of guys that retired at the same time, and thus there's a group of guys that are coming up. And I think if you judged my generation at this point in our careers, we might have been criticized a lot as well. So I think if you give, other than like Johnny Velasquez, he's the elder statesman now.
Yeah.
The rest of the group coming up, if you give them time to mature, then they'll be just as smart or not as smart, the same as we were in the prime of our careers.
I think some cases clock in their head is 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Wait a second, where was I? Was I at 18 or was I? Oh, wait.
And how many eyes in Mississippi? I just find it frustrating, though, because as I say, you get the horses out there on the front end now. It just seems like in the old days, somebody would go out and put a little pace on. And it makes it tough to handicap because there's 3 speed horses in the race. And you say, well, I'll use the stalker. And then they go out and one of the speed horses gets an easy lead. Nobody challenges.
Yeah, there is something I've noticed. We've never talked. We talked about a lot of things, but I don't think we've ever talked about this. It seems to me like a lot of the modern day younger jockeys aren't as aggressive early in races as some of the jockeys back in the day were.
Well, I think as a younger rider, you're more dependent on instructions and you're more obligated to follow those because you don't have a reputation of being able to do it on your own. And if you make a mistake, you're likely to be replaced by Velasquez, by Castellano, something like that. So you ride to instructions. To me, the best advice and best instructions to a jockey are do what you think is right when the gate opens. Here's how I see the race as a big picture, but obviously you're going to have to do what you think is best. To me, being adaptable and being instinctual in a race is far more important than knowing how fast or slow you're going.
And that's a great point you made about these guys. This is the new generation. Maybe we have to give them a little time to get up to what I remember as the highlight of as I was watching races. But we'll let you go now. Again, NBC broadcast of the Whitney and Test tomorrow. I'll be back a couple of times during the meet as well. Randy, before we let you go, you're also NFL Network, Golf Channel.
Yeah.
Give us some thoughts on NFL this year. What are we looking at?
Basketball,
I worked
everything.
too hard. I had too many irons in the fire. All right, well, the NFL's, it's the juggernaut. It's going to be fantastic this year as well.
Predictions?
I just did Patriots training camp last week. I was supposed to go to Vikings this week, and they got canceled. Predictions? I think the Bears are going to be a surprise team in the NFC. I really do. I mean, the NFC's so strong with the
Packers.
He's a huge Green Bay guy. Right? And I have to spend a lot of time in Green Bay as well. I'm there all the time. I always take pictures and text them to Jerry.
Yeah, I'm a Jets fan, so I won't say anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Really?
But I went to Syracuse, so essentially when football season starts, I just say, okay, I'm ready for basketball season to kick off.
I'm a big Rex Ryan fan, but I got 2 words for you: Michael Vick.
Yeah.
He needs to be the quarterback.
It's always a quarterback situation with those guys. It's crazy.
Drama.
Man, always. All right, Jerry Bailey, Randy Moss from NBC. We appreciate the visit this morning.
Okay.
Head to the next break. When we come back, Dave Litman from the Daily Racing Forum will take a look at a little racing today and the stakes action for tomorrow as well. Stay tuned.
Face it.